We are looking at Auron at the moment. Oh, he does get Legend Materia. Physical attacks deal more damage. Chance to dual cast Samurai abilities. What are the commands on Auron's second burst? Samurai. So that's not terrible. Plus attack for each hit taken. We'll give you a C. Complementary soul breaks. I do know that Auron gets his Riot Blade, which is a great complementary soul break. And its USB is insane. Well, I guess he already did have Sentinel. That's a regular soul break that I did not know existed in the game. Must not have stuck around for a while. So, basically looking at his first BSB, which is just junk. His awesome USB. So we'll give him a complimentary A. Just because of Riot Blade and Alcade. Is that what we're calling it? You're confused, so we only have 3 days of half stam left. Yeah, it seems so. I'm actually not going to use it. I know I did a couple last night, but it's more important for me to do dungeon update content on Mondays, where I don't have anything else to do, than it is to run dungeons right now with stamina that is actually valuable to me. So we added Auron to the list. He had added his averagely average burst at C, Legend Materia at C. I suppose I could bump his Legend Materia up to B, but I'm not going to worry that much about that. Because it does go well with his BSB2. However, I think I'm okay with it being at C because the strength of Auron is in his USB, not his BSBs. Nothing yet. Yeah, I took a look at the list and realized I needed to add Auron to it. He's kind of an odd duck in the fact that he can do night things using Sentinel, even though he doesn't have Night 5 himself. Is there any others like that? I don't think so. It was. Constructive. And I think I'm going to change up the support list, but I'll go over those changes after I'm done all my lists. Alright, so, I don't know, let's get started. Yes, Auron was, let's see. Yeah, he's the best character in 10. I don't really think there's anyone that could challenge him for that crown in my eyes, at least. So I put asterisks next to a couple of these because I wanted to start off on them. I was going to try a new format. where I add one person to each of the tiers, and then build from there. Each of the tiers except S. S is weird because the reason why I would add somebody to a tier and then build from there would be like so I could, compare them to each other. But the S tier in Knights is actually kind of strange. And those that will likely be in S, at least from the way I was evaluating them when I was making up this list, have very little to do with each other. They all kind of branch out in their own separate directions of knighthood. And in Celeste's in Celeste's case, in not knighthood at all. What puts her on this list as a knight instead of instead of a lot of people here, like they have Sentinel, or they just have crazy tank support things like Seifer or something. Celeste is a knight because of Grand Cross, and she's very unique in that regard. So if I were to put her in S and then decide to, compare off of that, I just thought it doesn't make any sense. So starting at the bottom, we got Angeal here. He's the only person on this list that doesn't have a BSB. He has no Legend Materia, and his complementary is an E because all that he has is a bad Soul Break. Maybe I could put it up to D because at least the Soul Break gives the entire party plus 100% defense. It's something. It's not E, I guess. I guess I was just really... I was laughing too hard to properly put that at D because Angeal is so ridiculously bad. So he's gonna be our D tier commando. There is no E tier for knights because at their core, as long as they have Knight 5, there's a floor that they can't go past. No one's truly useless as a knight. But if the very bottom is Angeal's the bottom dweller. Okay, moving up, my C tier knight is gonna be Edgar. Me neither. I don't understand. We've got Edgar, who is a strange guy. He's another one of those more... He doesn't do knight things, really. He's got poison instead of the earth and holy that... Oh my goodness, sorry. That the other characters in this list have. He does Machinist 5, Shooter 5, which are actually kind of nice ability sets to have, but they are what he has. And he doesn't have a way to Sentinel, so he is limited to draw fire and Magic Lure. Sorry, no brain fart there for a second. So while he's not really a knight, he does have an OSB, which is unique to this day, as far as I know, and that it's Area of Effect, which is kind of cool. Doesn't really do all that much damage, but I will take a completely unique damaging effect like that over something else. Edgar, we have his Bio Chainsaw, which is just a completely standard attach poison, and it's a C, very much a C burst soul break. And he's got a bad Imperil poison super soul break, and drill. This soul break was so good way back in the day. Giving plus 50% defense to allies was really nice. Not so good anymore. But yeah, Edgar balances out the fact that he's not much of a knight, with having a really cool OSB. So we're putting him in C tier. Because, I don't know, he's just average otherwise. What character did I call bad? Angeal is bad. That is a bad character. Edgar is not. Edgar is just C tier. So after Edgar, in B tier, I'm going to put Steiner. And I was kind of weird on this one, and I still might be. I was really just dying for someone to put in B tier, and I couldn't find... Oh, shoot. Gilgamesh is, like, perfect for B tier. Anyways, we're going to put Steiner there for now. He's got some mobility working in his favor, though. I think Steiner is B and a candidate for A. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to show you why. We have Steiner here, and a big problem with Steiner in the early goings-on is, for some reason, even though it's like a core part of his character, DNA decided to give Steiner Spellblade 4 instead of Spellblade 5. They did right the ship and eventually give him 5. And that made him a much better character. And that was around the time that he turned into a decent character elsewhere as well. That's when he got his tin armor, which allowed him to imperil fire instead of his crappy soul breaks and first super soul break. Now he has his burst available to him, which I believe is a B tier burst. It's a perfect example of a B tier burst, similar to Basch. So we've got Steiner here is 4 single target, 2 group AoE, but my god, the number of hits is enhanced if you're exploiting weakness. So it is an average burst with a nice addition, because that is what you would be using it for, would be to exploit weakness. I think the reason why we're placing Steiner in the B tier instead of A is because he is strictly a Fire Knight. Not 80%, not 100% strictly. He does have the Fire, Lightning, Ice OSB, but it's really bad. It's just bad. I mean, we have Bartz, who has a OSB about the same multiplier. It's 10 instead of 10.5. That has another element. I'll trade the 0.5 for another element. If we're already down here in the dump anyway, might as well, give us a little more versatility. But the problem with this is he's a Fire Knight. Everything that he does is fire-based. So it's not like the Lightning and Ice are, worth a damn. Because he can't boost that damage at all. It's really just to add some flexibility to him. And flexibility isn't even that big of a deal anymore unless you're strong in all the points that you're flexible in. And Steiner is just strictly fire. So he's got an Imperil. He has a nice attached fire burst, which is probably the best part of him. He's kind of a really bad OSB. And the thing that makes me wonder whether or not he's going to get A or not is his legend materia. This is where Steiner shines. He has a trance mode. We've seen this before, where if you drop below the 20% health threshold, I know it's listed as question marks here, but I'm assuming that is the same percentages on every other trance mode that they have in Legend Materia. So you drop below 20% health, you get refilled to full HP, and you activate Steiner Trance, which is not exactly on the same level as other trances, and this really, really disappointed me. He gets attack and defense 25%. Yeah. Come on. Like, there's some people, like right now, but right below him, VV. Magic 30%, 50% chance to dual cast black magic abilities. Like, come on. Ugh. So, they took Steiner out back and clubbed him over the head and gave him this while he couldn't protest. But it is something. It is a legitimate series. It's not, one of these crappy, I get +1 attack for every night ability I use. At least it's better than that, because being able to refill your health to 100% after dropping below a certain threshold is okay. And the buff isn't terrible. It's really just underwhelming compared to some of the others. And Creative Spellblade, and this is the highlight of his Legitimate area. 20% chance to cause major or minor fire peril to the target after using a Spellblade ability to an enemy. This is probably why I put him in B, because I believe his burst. It's not even Knight or Spellblade, it's combat. Are you kidding me right now? I'm not even sure I'm okay with Steiner being in B. He's all over the place. He's a competent dealer of the fire damage with his BSB. And he does have legend materia. So, do more physical attacks than using a sword. Which he usually will be. He has a health refill. So he's B, but God, there's no way he gets A anymore. Okay. Moving up. We have A tier. And my A tier is going to be Gladiolus. He's the Final Fantasy 15 character. One of the 3 characters in that realm. He's legitimately good across the board, as you can see. He has a nice burst, good legend materia, and a good complementary soul break. I think the complementary being at A might be a little high. Oh no, he has an OSB plus a super soul break. That's why I have it at A. And it's valid because the super soul break's legitimately good. We're going to go take a look at him. Yeah, the OSB is bad. The LMM are pretty bad. Yeah. It's his BSB, and he revolves around his BSB, and his BSB is actually... It's not standard. It's not a C tier, because it hits 5 times when it hits weakness, and you're only going to be using him in situations where you would hit weakness anyway. You know what? What I am describing right now would be a B tier damage dealer, not a B tier knight. He's actually an awful knight. So maybe C is worth it. Okay, back to Gladiolus. Nope, that's his legend materia, but that's good that we're there anyway. Gladiolus has a burst soul break that is cut from the same cloth as Warrior of Light. Tempest, all enemies, real bad damage, but it's attached, so that's fine. Grants haste, attached earth, and burst mode. So let's take a look at the commands, and why is this considered an A tier burst by me? Oh man, you just blend in. There we go. Ground bashing shield. He's an earth knight, and that becomes a much bigger thing as we go on. 1 through 5 single attacks based on defense thresholds. This is a very low defense threshold. This is, I believe, like 300 or 400 less defense than getting the max hits on Earth. Guardbringer. And because he has Sentinel on his second command, the 2490 defense is actually an easy threshold to hit. So he has a 5-hit attach Earth single first command, which is excellent for dealing damage. He has Sentinel. This is excellent for being a knight, and it augments his ability to do damage. This is just a burst that knows what it wants to do. it not only tanks, but deals a really respectable amount of damage at the same time. This is a Night Burst. So going over to his other soul breaks, we have Dawn Hammer, which is his OSB. 10.44 base. That we already means we know we're going to get a qualify or wrong word. Anyway, multiplier increase with hits taken. Okay, it when you have to cast his burst in order to get that Sentinel debuff. Well, that's not even true because he is a great user of Gaia Cross. So you could throw out a Gaia Cross at the beginning of the fight before any of this even happens, and you start accumulating hits for this. However, I'm actually going to zoom over to his Legend Materia because it directly has an impact on how good his Dawnhammer OSB is. He has a 30% chance to cover physical attacks that target allies, reducing damage taken by 20%. That's a flat damage reduction. That is awesome, and it perfectly encapsulates what a knight should be. And remember, Gladiolus is also a Samurai 5, so he has access to Retaliate and what's the Hailstorm, which is awesome. So this guy is a tank, and that's awesome because that's what we're looking for from knights. Finally, we find a real knight. Plus attack for each hit taken, don't care, so we're probably going to be using physical attack steal, 10% more damage on equipping a sword, and his ability to cover hits for people. It's really awesome. Demon's Blood's cool too, I guess. I mean, we're going to have the motes to use them eventually, right? Right now it's just shatterproof, or shatterworthy. Anyway, so we have an OSB that well synergizes with his BSB and his Legend Materia, his awesome cover Legend Materia. And his Super Soul Break is a carbon copy of Minfilia's attack 50% and grants last stand of the party, which is a great Super Soul Break to have, especially for somebody that's going to be generating a lot of Soul Break gauge. You know what? Scratch that, because that's not really a situation you'd be using that in. Because he has a good OSB, you would generally either be recasting his BSB, since it's an attach earth, and always the recasting stuff like that hurts a lot, or you'll be casting his OSB. This is more of a full throttle and torment type thing, where you have the surplus, and you're able to use that at the beginning of a fight rather than in the middle of one. So Gladiolus is an excellent character. He is very focused in that he only has these 3 soul breaks, and 2 of them are the ones that you're going to be using on a regular basis if you have both. So he's not an expansive knight, and that's why we're throwing him in A, but he's excellent at it. I would say so, but you gotta understand that there are some knights that really exceed the definition of what knight does. And I'm gonna do one of those right now. Let's do Warrior of Light, who happens to be a disgusting character. Yeah, the 15 banner is good, and it's actually definitely going to be on my list of strong banners that knights appear on, because it's an all-around good event. So Warrior of Light is probably going to be our first S tier, just because he does it all. He does it all. He has a very good burst that has only gotten better with time. It's one of the scaling bursts. And I came to Warrior of Light after Gladiolus specifically because his ultimate shield is just the only difference between his ultimate shield and Gladiolus's. Well, there's 3, so only is a bad word. It's single enemy instead of AoE. I actually prefer that. It's holy instead of earth, and holy instead of earth. And the only difference here is his commands don't have Sentinel on them. But he gets the same defense thresholds to hit 5 attacks with his Holy Command. Same multiplier. Very, very good commands. And instead of getting Gladiolus' version, he gets 2 group attacks that do defense plus 50% to him. Now, why I consider this at least in the same conversation as Gladiolus' because Sentinel is clearly better. Sentinel gives you plus 200% defense. 200%, yes, 200%. And taunts black and physical attacks. This is obviously not as good. However, let me see if Gladiolus is group, because that's actually significant. Gladiolus will have to use Aegis Strike, I believe, to hit... No, he's a samurai, so he could use Flashing Blade, too. But that's non-elemental. Yeah, his second command is single target. This is weird. You would prefer to get the AoE on Gladiolus, because Warrior of Light is holy base, so he synergizes really well with Aegis Strike as an AoE option. So... his burst is more single target focused. But still, it's a damn good burst, and it's still A tier. But moving on, we move into Warrior of Light's continuing repertoire, arsenal of soul breaks. We have his OSB, which is another 10.44. Multiplier increases with hits taken. He really is the holy version of Gladiolus, or the other way around. So we know that's good. Does he have the legend materia that Gladiolus does to help make that, as cool as Gladiolus' was? No, he does not. But here's the kicker. He has a legend materia that's not even an LMR. That grants last standing Sentinel at the beginning of the battle. So, while this is good, it's not as good as Gladiolus' cover Legend Materia. However, it allows him to start taking hits immediately as the fight starts. This is a really cool Legend Materia. The problem here is reduces damage taken by holy attacks by 10%. That's just... that's dump, practically. And plus 3% attack for each hit taken, up to 35%, is also not that great. Yeah. That's unfortunate that he doesn't have anything else, because you get to use 2 Legend Materia. I like to have C2 that, you can use, but he really only has 1. And I guess... I don't even know if I'd unlock that. It's basically just limited to this. So... at least he has that Sentinel going on at the beginning of the fight that goes along with his OSB, and that's good. So moving on, we see that he is the user of the Holy Chain. And it's really good. It's a really good Holy Chain. And Holy Chain is a very good chain to have because it's such a prominent element. And it's so easy to assemble a holy team. And all these chains have this like rudder effect, like Shantoto's has the quick cast thing, and Titus's has, isn't it also quick cast? I don't know. Whatever. It has a little bonus on the end, and this one's grant HP stock 2,000 to all allies, which is awesome. That's really really good. It doesn't even show up on. I didn't realize it didn't show up on stream. I'm sorry. There we go. I'm sorry. What's up? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're evaluating on the character before we even get to his chain and USB. Like, come on. Let's not do that. Chain and USB. There's no one else that has this. And he has an A-tier burst to go along with his chain and OSB. And USB. It's Legend Materia, not what make Warrior of Light good. It's just a little bonus. So the Holy Chain is extremely good, and it is part of what defines the knight, is their ability to deal holy damage. And now moving on, we have his USB, which is 10 single attacks, blah blah blah, grants X mode, light bless, and attach holy to the user. So let's go take a look at this light bless status. Last 15 seconds. Defense 100%. Knight abilities deal 5% more damage for each knight ability used, up to 30%. Stacked up on versatility, yes. Pretty much. He is the warrior of holy. And it's reflected in a lot of the stuff he does, but at the same time, he's a viable knight as well, because of his ability to soup up his defense and start the fight with both Last Stand and Sentinel. Unfortunately, yes, it's tough to find Warrior of Light because, you know, it's Final Fantasy 1, and that's that I'm not going to hold that against the character, because I'm not advising people on how, like, prominent these characters stick out. I'm advising people as, like, this character's good, and now you can make a decision on whether or not to, you know, pull for stuff for them. And if you don't like the drawback, the fact that it appears on Final Fantasy 1 banners, and it's hard to find that stuff, then, you know, okay. But that's not going to be in the scope of what I'm asking, or what I'm trying to show. So, Warrior of Light is rocking a huge array of things, and that's what is going to make him S. I have his legend materia marked as A. I did this in the middle of the night. I don't consider his legend materia A. I drop it down to a B. It's the exceeding S. He's the only person with a complimentary S here, and there's a reason for that. It's just he has so many soul breaks. And they're all like standalone. They can work together, but alright, who should I choose next? Yeah, that's a good point, Shimra. I would have really liked to get a second chance to go after his shield. I guess I can go from top down, just to make it easier. Take away, you know, shave off some time that would be in between. So, Leon's next. We got a Dark Knight going on. BSBC, Legend Materia A, Complimentary A. Oh. For a second, I forgot that Leon is Final Fantasy 2. Alright, we have Dark Knight's Charge, 8 single attacks, grant haste, touch dark, blah blah blah. Is C as C gets right now? Where are you at, Leon? Okay. A single attack that heals the user for 20% of the damage dealt. I hate this command. It's a 3-star ability. Like, come on. We can do better than this. And his second ability is 2 single attacks, grants Hailstorm to the user for 20 seconds. So his single target damaging ability is limited to 2 attacks. This is bad. At least the commands are darkness, and they probably like blend into his soul, his legend materia. Well, let's take a look at what else he has. He has a USB, and this is probably what makes the character any good. Wow, he's got an HP stock 6000 like Cecil. Darkness 30% boost, which I guess is okay. It's just really generic. Right now I'm seeing a terrible burst, so the character seems to be based heavily around their USB. And what you would do with him would be, I don't know, Dark Bargain, or Life Siphon, Dark Bargain, USB, and then you keep casting the USB. So you get the Darkness 30% boost and Attach Dark, which gives you another 50 to 80%. So you want to keep recasting his USB. So it's kind of boring, but still effective, because there's no way he's dying, because if you're casting his USB every third turn, that HP stock 6000 is going to be, it's going to let him live forever. And it's going to do a fair amount of damage, considering all that damage boost you got going. I don't think it's additive. I think it's multiplicative. I don't know. But still, that's an 80% and a 30% boost are huge. 6.88. You couldn't even give us closer to 8? Man. Oh, no, it's low damage to begin with, which really shaves off some of the potential of the percentage damage increase. Alright, let's go take a look at his legend. No, I'll show you Hand of the Emperor first. Hand of the Emperor is an old slow break, and it's still good. He can cast Sentinel on himself, but Sentinel's something you want to see on either on a burst entry or a burst command, or part of a much better soul break. There's no way you're casting this super soul break just for Sentinel. I'd much rather get my Drawfire or Magic Lure from elsewhere. Legend Materia, we got Leon at increases dark damage dealt. Okay. Attack increase for dark attack and chance to dual cast darkness abilities. This would normally be a good legend materia, a chance to dual cast darkness abilities on someone that uses or should use a lot of darkness abilities. However, as we saw in his soul breaks, it's not really. This would turn his burst into a C tier burst, where right now I'd consider it closer to D. This makes his burst okay rather than, being okay, better. And we saw that with his USB that you're not going to be using darkness abilities. This is darkness abilities, not dark damage. Darkness, dark. These actually apply to his USB. Well, this doesn't. So you're going to be life siphoning USB, life siphoning USB. The only darkness ability, this is the same problem Sid Reigns has with darkness abilities, is it's just Dark Bargain. So it doesn't really work with Leon. It's not good. I do like the potential for damage output as a Dark Knight with Leon's USB. So, yeah, and I didn't even realize when I was making the list last night, his Legend Materia not A. Because it normally, I probably saw the dual cast and saw, okay, A, right away. But nope, it didn't, sorry, does not deserve that grade. Leon would be a D tier knight if it weren't for his USB, which competently does dark damage. So we're throwing him in C tier, because he makes up for it somewhat there. Alright, next on the list we have Ingus. We've got a candidate for some really high placement here. Ingus is another Earth Knight, but he's unique. I'm going to note right off the bat that we have Samurai 3 here and White Magic 4. So, White Magic 4 is what defines a Paladin. It allows them to use all the utility-based white magic abilities, including, most importantly, Protecga and Shelga, but Haste, Dispel when it's necessary, Sloga, and gives them a lot of added utility. He is the only knight on this entire list that is both a Paladin and has the ability to retaliate. So that's interesting. And let's, why not throw Support 4 into the mix while we're at it? Which we know from past lists is very valuable. Less so on knights, because almost I believe every knight here except for Celes has access to combat 4, so they can life siphon, but it's still valuable. We have BSB ranked at A, LM at C, and Comp at A. Let's go take a look. Alright. We'll look at his burst first. Oathsworn Espada. They like to put this one on banners. I believe it was on the Japanese Extreme Fest too, if anyone's still looking for it. We have Haste, Oathsworn Espada as a status and attach Earth. Right off the bat, we're a big fan of this because this is allotted more power than a typical an element burst is. Not only does it end Earth, but it also gives him a unique status. And a very strong unique status. It gives him plus 30% attack and defense. For free, it stacks with everything. On a normal burst, this would not be here. So it's actually an exceptionally powerful one right out the gate. Let's see if the commands are any good. We have 2 single target, 2 attack. Grants Sentinel on the first and grants Retaliate on the second. A little dated. By the time the other prominent Earth Knight comes around in Gladiolus, Gladiolus can do 5 attacks and a slightly higher multiplier. So Ingus's ability to deal damage is a little stunted because the best thing that he has going for him is the ability to use Sentinel and Oathsworn Espada together for a gigantic defense boost and use Guardbringer, which unfortunately is a holy-based knight ability, which doesn't synergize with his Earth kit that great. So let's see if we can find anything else in his soul breaks that would, I don't know, give him more damage potential. Because we see right away that having Sentinel and Retaliate on burst commands is really nice. It turns him into probably the premier Tauntaliator. But we want our knights to also be able to do damage. They aren't just tanks. We have Titan's Blade. A super soul break that is probably better, no, absolutely better than anything Leon can do by himself. That's an insane status to have on a Super Soul Break, and Agrias is another that has it, and she is much better for it. Yeah, no problem, Shimra. Sure. Twitch or Discord works. I follow them both. It's Earth-based, which is great. So, despite not having an OSB, we like the fact that he has, Earth-based things. This is a little weird. Let me check something. Because this is a chain soul break. Ingus is the bearer of the Earth chain. I want to see if Warrior of Light chain is also just holy. Okay. Then they're all the same. They don't have non-elemental, which is fine. No, it makes perfect sense. There's no way that you're using a chain attack on a boss that isn't either at least neutral to holy. Like, this is something that you're trying to exceed the damage increase from vulnerability, and that's what chains are for. So not having a non-elemental component to it isn't even a big deal. So his Earth chain, how it just does the single attacks, 11 so to add to the chain, Earth chain 20%, and grants Last Stand. That's his runner, while Warrior of Light had HP stock 2000. I like this. I like it a lot. HP stock 2000 is a good status and valuable in different ways. So I really like this one. So while he's lower damage output, we're starting to see other benefits to Ingus that make him really good. And I feel a lot better about the fact that his commands are both only 2 hit now, because he has other soul breaks that make it worth, very, very much worth using him. And as the bearer of the Earth Chain, it gives him a lot of value, especially for such a rare element. Does Ingus Chain Relic have plus Earth? That's a good question. However, his Super Soul Break Titan's Blade, the one that gives attack and magic minus 50%, does have plus Earth. So just keep that in mind. But we'll check out his CSB right now, because that's a good call. It's an axe. Rune axe. Oops. No. RS increases the earth damage by 20%. So it does have plus earth damage, but... No, his premier weapon is definitely a Super Soul Break weapon. Strange, but... Yeah. If it's called a Rune Axe, it better have that 3 magic to haunt you. Yeah, Ingus is your Earth Knight. While Gladiolus is an Earth damage dealing knight that that can also tank, Ingus is basically just an Earth but not as expansive version of Warrior of Light. Well, Warrior of Light is more damage dealer and Ingus is more tanky. And this can be considered a tank item as well, because that debuff is crazy. He has legend materia too, so let's go take a look at those. Knight abilities deal X% more damage. Not sure what that percentage is. I'm guessing 10%. It's usually 10, but these are elementals, so I don't have something to compare it on. Attack plus for each hit taken, don't like it. 25% chance to reduce damage taken by 30% when equipping a shield. That's pretty cool. Love flat damage reductions. However, it is a low percentage. But it's still nice because it really helps him be a tank. It's just not as good as that cover material from Gladiolus. Yeah, Final Fantasy 3, like every single character in Final Fantasy 3 is at least above average character. I'm going to throw Ingus in A tier for now. I think he has the full package, and he's a candidate for S. However, it's a lot easier to find people to build off of a Holy Chain with Warrior of Light than it is for the Earth Chain. It's so Earth isn't as bad of an element as it used to be. It used to be resisted or immune. There was a lot of immunities, but while that's not really a thing anymore, it's hard to find people to match up with Ingus, because that, in order for Ingus to be S tier, he would need to get full effect from his Burst Soul Break, which is useful at all times, but his Chain Soul Break. And unfortunately, that isn't a thing yet. Yeah, if he had a cover LM, I probably would have tossed him an S. It's really that cool of a legend materia. So after Ingus, we have Cecil, the original paladin. Cecil, we have BSB A, and that is not his first BSB. He gets a second BSB, and that's what we're rating here. Legend Materia A, and Complementary A. So, I mean, if judging by that alone and the fact that he's just a paladin, you would think we would put him in A, but let's see. He's similar to Warrior of Light in that he has a very expansive repertoire, an arsenal of soul breaks. We have Burst Soul Break 1, but we're gonna go with his Burst Soul Break 2 for now, because that's what we have listed on the list. So we have, rather than being a damage one and giving him Attach Holy, we grant Sentinel instead on the entry. Not as cool, but nothing really is as cool as Ingus's Burst. So let's take a look at the commands and see if they build off the Sentinel theme we got going here. And they absolutely do. We have 5 single attacks capable if the user has taken 7 attacks. Seems pretty easy to hit, to be honest. Especially when you consider that his burst opens up with Sentinel. And like Gladiolus, in the same situation, we're going to go and zoom over to his Legend Materia and see this. 40% chance. This is even better than Gladiolus's. 40% chance to cover physical attacks, reducing damage taken by 50%. I don't even know why I put his Legend Materia ranked as an A. This Legend Materia alone is S tier. And this is awesome too. Defense plus 3% for each hit taken, up to 35%. This is so much better than plus attack, because we buff plus attack all the time. And the soft cap, like, the ability to push defense to the limits is so much better. So I really like his LMR, and reduces damage taken by holy attacks by 10%. Don't care about that. So this is one of the best Legend Materias that Knights have available to them. And this is a great addition to the party. So, yeah. Well, pardon me while I go and switch Cecil's Legend Materia to S tier. Nice, Terra. It's really awesome. So that is just his burst. And let's take a look at the second command. Oh, wow. 4 single attacks and resistance plus 100% to the user for 20 seconds. Even better. You get Sentinel on cast of the Burst Soul Break itself, which gives you plus 200%, but 200% defense, but also taunts black magic attacks. It's always a little weird thing about using Sentinel, knowing that you're not increasing your resistance when you taunt attacks to yourself. But the fact that he has this excellent second command, plus 100% resistance, is crazy. This is like an awesome tank burst to go along with his really awesome Legend Materia. And they work together very well together. And we're just on his Burst Soul Break 2. So let's go take a look at the other stuff he has available to him. He has a USB called Sacred Cross. 10 single attacks. It's wholly non-elemental, I believe it is. Grants X-Paladin and HP Stock 6,000 and attach Holy to the user. Okay, so you're telling me that he is the ultimate Holy tank with his Burst and his LMR. Or his LM, it's not even his LMR. But he can also augment his damage very well too. Sure. Love this so far. Let's go take a look at what X-Paladin does, the status. Oh. Plus 100% defense. Well, that flopped. We like a lot more coming from our X modes. I mean, defense plus 100% is fine. Oh, it's only 15 seconds too. Ugh. Alright, so not as big of a fan of this USB. But it's still a weird one. Because it gives him that plus defense. The HP stock 6,000 is nuts. And attach Holy. So it enables this Burst Soul Break to become a damaging Soul Break, on top of the fact that it is really good as far as tanking is concerned. So these two really just meant to work well together, even though the Burst Soul Break 2 itself works well by itself. And he also has an OSB, plain as day, just a 12.0 holy, normal like the old ones. And we're not even going to look that closely at his BSB1. The only reason why I would continue to do so is because instead of using his USB to get the attached holy status, his BSB1 is kind of common, and it even showed up on the Ultros banner. So it's actually a fair, like, as much as a relic can be, it's a common one. So a lot of people have it, and they can build off of that to enable his second burst. What else do we have available to Cecil? No, this is everything Cecil does. Can we throw Cecil in S tier based solely upon the fact that he has a damaging OSB that works well together with what he does, a good USB, but really his strength is his BSB2 and his LM. Can we S tier him for that? Honestly, I do believe we can. That LM is just disgusting, and you don't even require all that much to enable his potential. Just his BSB2, and everything else is just gravy, and that gravy is what gives him the S. Oh yeah, Guardbringer. Oh god, yeah, he's a huge Guardbringer user. Both relics debut during Extreme Fest? No. His BSB2 appears on the Rubicante banner, which is a banner that I've highlighted in the past for being worth taking a look at. It's got Rose's USB on it. Edge's USB and Cecil's BSB2. Nice. It's nice. So high A, borderline S. I'm going to put him low S, borderline A. Yeah. Because he would be an A tier knight with just his BSB and the LM. Throw in... it is a really good USB. Just because the X-Mode Paladin was disappointing doesn't mean it's not a good USB. And an OSB on top of that, he's S. All right, we got an odd little duckling. Golbez. he's a mage, but he does have Knight 5. And not only does he have Knight 5, but his defining relic, his Burst Soul Break, gives him Sentinel on cast. So he's a legitimate tank. He just does it in a very different way from everybody else. His BSB I rate as an A. As a tanking BSB, it is plus 30% magic to the user. Grants haste and sentinel and burst mode on cast. This is actually a very strong entry, and it's similar to Ingus's in that it has the added effect on top of the normal cast, because as we saw with Cecil's Burst Soul Break 2, it was haste, sentinel, burst mode, and that's it. Golbez gets another 30% magic to help him along as well. And so let's take a look at the commands. He has a summoning command, Burst Soul Break, which gives him Summon Black Dragon and Stone Skin 30% with the first cast of his summon. If you recast the summon, it does 4 group attacks. It's a 17.2 group attack. This is a very, very powerful dark element summon. What is something I can compare this to? It would be like using a 4-star elemental summon every single turn. Because a 4-star elemental summon does roughly half as much damage as this does. So the fact that you have to alternate because of the summon status, you stone skin yourself, then you group attacks, you AoE attack, then you Stone Skin yourself, group attacks. And that's how you run that as an AoE option, and it's very powerful. Because it's essentially using that 4-star summon every turn, while every other turn getting the benefit from the Stone Skin 30% buff, which is nice. Especially when you consider he is sentineling himself at the start of the fight. And really that's a nice thing to have, but what defines Golbez's burst is his second command, where if you summon the Black Dragon, then you get access to his 4-hit and heals the user for 20% of damage dealt. So this is a really nice thing to have. I mean, you start off with the burst by sentineling yourself, then you get Stone Skin on the first turn afterwards, and then you start healing yourself to full every single turn thereafter until you eventually recast your burst. This is an excellent burst, and it really, really does things that other Dark Knights on this list wish they could do. Like, we saw Leon had a single strike heal. We will see that Seifer, however you want to say it, also has a single strike heal. We see that Auron, on his Burst Soul Break 1, has a single strike heal. Nobody can self-heal themselves like Golbez, and he's an interesting tank for it. No legend materia, complimentary C. Why did I put it at C? Because he really doesn't do much to add on to his concept. All he really does is give himself Attached Arc with his last Super Soul Break. This magic plus 30% to the user is worthless because it will not stack with the one that comes from his burst, and you're not using Golbez without his burst. So that's a pretty useless Super Soul Break. So where do we place Golbez on this list? I think with the strength and the uniqueness and the ability to do dark damage, because that's one of the 3 elements that's in play here. We have Holy Knights. We've seen some really good Earth Knights so far at Ingus and Gladiolus, who are A, high A at minimum. But we haven't seen any good Dark Knights, and that trend is going to continue. Golbez actually happens to be likely the best Dark Knight in the game, and we'll see that if that's true going forward. So we're gonna put Golbez in B. I want to put him higher, but it's the fact that it really is just his burst and nothing else, with no legend materia and 0 complimentary to his name, really. I want to put him higher, but the burst isn't enough to get him there. You need more stuff, especially for knights. And I didn't make note of this that deeply on the other knights, but understand that there's a record materia in this game that is very well suited for knights, and anyone that uses Sentinel, Drawfire, Magic Lure, and that is the Lionheart record materia. You can generate some serious soul break on these characters, and you don't even need, like, you don't need stuff like Life Siphon to get there. I mean, it helps, but with Lionheart, all these characters are going to have insane soul break generation. So the complementary soul breaks column is actually very important, because if Golbez had more going for him in that column, then he really could have been bumped up to A, because the possibility of him being able to use more soul breaks than just his burst is very real. Alright, next on the list we have Theodore. Haven't seen him in Global yet, but he's coming soon. Give it a few weeks. White Magic 4, one of the 2 pure White Mage, no, not pure White Mage, but full White Mage Knights. So he has access to Curada over what and Ultra Cure, I guess, but Theodore doesn't use Ultra Cure. He's got other means. And support 4, which is definitely an interesting addition to him. BSB rated as A, doesn't have legend materia. That's unfortunate. Complimentary C. Let's go take a look at this burst soul break. Yeah, if you're retaliating, then you don't generate soul break usage when you because the attacks essentially miss. Right. You would not want to use it on someone like Agrias or Golbez because they're taking the hits and they're soaking it. So we have Seodor in his Holy Cross Burst Soul Break. 8 single attacks. Restores HP to all allies for 40% of their maximum HP. Okay, that's interesting. So he, right out of the gate, does something that other knights don't do, and heals the entire party. And let's take a look at his commands and say if he stays and is sufficiently on theme and helps enough for it to be a good burst. 4 single attacks, decent multiplier, restores HP to the lowest HP ally for 20% of their max, 25% of their maximum HP. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. And here is probably what pushes this BSB into A tier is 2 group attacks or removes negative effects to a random ally with negative effects. He does not need Ultra Cure because he can always just use his second command and just cure someone of their negative effects. Really cool. Really, really cool. This burst is unique. No one else can do stuff like this. And that doesn't make it good by itself, but the effects that he does give to the party are good. And I do believe he has an Attach Holy to go along with it. So it does help him deal a little bit of damage because it is a lower damage burst. We're going to rate Seodor because that's all he has going for him. He has no legend materia. He just has his soul breaks. And his support 4 is nice. It is nice because that allows him to do breakdowns. He's got to be A because he doesn't push the limits like Warrior of Light or Cecil do. I've got to put Seodor in A. While his burst is really, really good, I guess... Yeah, it's A. I know someone was arguing with me. Not arguing, but like we were having a discussion about the possibility of Seodor being S tier. Just because what he brings to the party is so strong. And I do believe so, but that's the only... That's my case for Seodor as A instead of B. Because he's similar in... If you look at this, like Golbez A... No Legend Materia C, while Seodor A, Legend No Materia C. How do I make the case of Seodor being A and Golbez being B is because Seodor just brings a lot more value to the team. Just being a tank with Sentinel is not enough, because Seodor can do that too. Not to as great of effect, but he adds being a tank, because he's a knight, to having White Mage 5, which is cool. Support 4, which is definitely cool, and his very, very valuable burst. Anyway, we're at Gilgamesh, who really, DNA is just... Ugh, man. He used to be such a strong and prominent character. Pillow, I do agree, Golbez does have more swagger. Golbez was... Golbez was laying teams flat, while Seodor was just an idea in Cecil's head. So Gilgamesh used to be one of the premier characters in the game, because back when all these soul breaks and record materia and record spheres weren't in the game. We judged people upon their skill sets, their stats, and their equipment selection. Gilgamesh has those and hasn't really evolved past those. They did buff him to being able to dive to Dragoon 5, which is kind of cool. So he's one of the few knights here that can deal competent wind damage and lightning damage because of the 5 and 6 star Dragoon abilities. But his soul breaks really fail him, and let's go take a look at him right now. We have Gilgamesh's Morphing Time. 8 single attacks, grants haste, sentinel, and burst mode to the user. That's just typical. However, it is a non-elemental, and I think he falls flat when it comes to this. Knights are defined by their elementalness. I guess you could say that Gilgamesh is unique since he doesn't run into Omni-Resist boss difficulties. However, he's not a damage dealer, so you're not bringing him... you don't really care that much. Where are you, buddy? Alright, Gilgamesh, Morphing Time. Dual Thrust, 2 single attacks, removes positive effects. So a dual hit Banishing Strike. The fact that it's just a slightly higher damage version of Banishing Strike means that it's not a terribly useful ability. Though Knights do have an expansive ability pool, and he has a pretty expansive ability pool, so having Banishing Strike open up those ability slots is nice. And 2 single attacks to grant retaliate to the user for the same reason. So what we're doing here with his burst, we give him Sentinel, he can retaliate, and he can Banishing Strike, is taking stress off of his ability slots. So can the case be made for Gilgamesh as a higher tier character based solely upon the fact that he opens up his ability slots? No, I can't put him in the same tier as Ingus or Ceador, because Ingus gets, Ingus just gets a lot of other stuff. Ceador gets a lot of other stuff that isn't available as abilities. Gilgamesh just, he falls flat there, so let's see if we can push him up with either his OSB or his BSB. His OSB is bad, and that's all I'm going to say about it. It's just... non-elemental damage. Whatever. And he gets a USB in Extreme Fest. For 10 single attacks, grants X Legendary Swordsman, High Retaliate, and Dance of Carnage. Well, that's a whole lot of... That's a mouthful of statuses that we need to go and take a look at. Dance of Carnage, we know it first occurs on Refia's Burst Soul Break. Gives him 50% chance to crit. High Retaliate is a almost complete copy of Retaliate, except that while Retaliate does a basic attack in return for receiving a physical hit, High Retaliate changes his attack into an ability that does 1.2 multiplier. So a basic attack is 1.0 multiplier. That's what all of that physical multiplier thing is based around. Well, High Retaliate essentially does 20% damage more. On an already... The damage that you get from Retaliate usually didn't really matter all that much unless... Like, it was one of those special fights where they attack like 5 times and then you attack 5 times in return. So it's not that big of a deal. So let's take a look at X Legendary Swordsman and see if we can redeem this kind of, I don't know, lackluster USB. Yeah, Shooting Star, I wish. Oh no, we get a simple plus 30% attack buff. So there's a lot of... This is a very verbose USB, but not a whole lot of benefit. High Retaliate is just codename for slightly better Retaliate, but just barely. Plus 30% attack and 50% crit buff. Um, so, yeah. Yeah. Gilgamesh gets B tier. I can't make a case for him. He's just they haven't treated him very well. He's not aged. Alright, sorry, that was a brief break. Dance of Carnage, a party buff for himself. It's just himself. All of that is just to himself. If Dance of Carnage was party, that would be a completely different story. Well, his BSB isn't terrible. But his BSB is more like a Final Fantasy V Sid mission tool now. Alright, who's next on our list? We got Dorgon. Who's is an interesting character. While not many people, I don't know many people at all that will be pulling strictly for Dorgon, but he does appear on one of the stronger banners that we've seen in the future, and that would be the Ferris USB 2 Bart's BSB 3 banner. So while he's probably not going to be rated that highly, keep an eye on Dorgon. Just a little tip from me to you. We have support 4. That's actually kind of cool. Samurai 2, which gives him access to Tauntaliate. BSB B and Complementary D. Let's take a look. We got Foreign Land. All enemies, no damage. So it better have some damn good effects on cast if you're not giving me any damage. Causes Imperil Earth. All enemies, 25 seconds. Okay. Attack defense plus 30% to all allies for 25 seconds. Okay. I accept this. You're just trading damage on the front end for attack and defense 30% to all allies. Which I like. If you just consider how much damage this is going to do, since it's not an element burst, it's not going to do damage, a lot of damage on cast like subsequent times. So this is actually a good thing. Because you're probably going to get more overall damage from a plus 30% attack buff to party than you would with the cast. That's my point. Oh, plus you throw Imperil Earth in there too. So I like that we're getting more Earth Knights because it increases the value of someone like Ingus, and if it keeps on going, then Ingus may one day enter the S tier where I want him to be, because I think he's an awesome character. We have Dorgon's commands at Earth Wind instead of Earth Non-Elemental. 4 single attacks grants... here's an interesting one we haven't seen before. Grants Knight plus 15% boost 2 to the user. This is a really... it sounds more complicated than it is. It's the 2 counts for iteration, so you can... It applies a status that can be used twice. In the statuses, it increases all Knight abilities by 15% damage, which is really interesting. Obviously, we definitely immediately look to whether or not his burst commands are Knight, and they are, which is good. And then we get that really awesome status on his second command. 3 single attacks, which is high for I guess that's their consolation for it not being an area of effect, is just adding another attack. Not a lot of other people get this. Normally they would just dick them over and say, okay, so 2 single attacks and you get your status from it. But we have 2 really nice commands here. Meikyo Shisui is plus 30% attack and plus 30% resistance. I want to verify that. I'm still unsure because I haven't still haven't seen this status enough. Meikyo Shisui, for 25 seconds you get attack and resistance plus 30%. Okay, I was on. Awesome status. Awesome status. So love these commands. And him being a support 4 adds a lot of value. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to go that far. A lot of value is a little overstating it, because Dorgon's value is in his ability to do night damage, right? So, oh man, I wish they had better Earth Knight things. They only have Gaia Cross. And Aegis Strike is just holy, right? And Guardbringer is just holy. If they only had an Earth version of Guardbringer, it would really enable some of these Earth Knights. So Aegis Strike is just holy. And Guardbringer is just holy. So all they got going for him is Gaia Cross. Oh, you know what? Meikyo, no, it is not the Hailstorm buff. Hailstorm is plus 30% attack, minus 30% resistance. And it's a unique status. That's the difference between it saying that in the description and just calling it by its buff name, is that it's a unique, and they would stack together, and they would stack together with a buff that gave that augmented attack and resistance. Right, Quake Strike. I know. I wish Dorgon was a Spellblade. It'd be awesome. You know, thinking about it, yeah, no, his entry is Imperil Earth. So I was like, oh, that's not attach Earth, so he's not really locked to Earth, even though it does Earth damage. So he could do holy damage just fine. And that's not true, because his PSB is Imperil Earth on the entry, and you should be taking advantage of that. I think mostly what I would do with Dorgon would just alternate his commands. Obviously, I'd want to bring Gaia Cross on him so he can do night things instead of just damage. But you'd be alternating his commands. Let's see if his Super Soul Break is any good. Minus 30% defense to the user for 25 seconds. Alright. Attack and magic plus 30% all allies. It's wind damage. This is not that great of a Super Soul Break. I mean, it's nice for submission scenarios because you like getting buffs. But I think the best part about his Super Soul Break is the relic that it comes on. Is a plus wind damage sword, which is extremely rare. I think it may even be unique. Alright, so how are we going to vote with Dorgon? I think if I'm putting Gilgamesh in B, and I think someone made note in chat that he's lucky to be in B. I think they're right. I think Dorgon belongs in B just by the strength of his Burst Soul Break. And Support 4. Support 4 is really nice. Just underdeveloped. Yeah. Alright, next we have Celes. Oh boy. Oh boy. Only person on this list who has an S tier burst. Legend Materia, S tier. Okay. Oh, we'll get to Seifer. We'll get him. And complimentary B for Celes. Let's dive into this burst and see what makes it S tier. Do we even need to discuss it that much? Yes, because the strength of Celes isn't on global yet. And for like people watching that don't like really follow the future, which is, you know, it's totally fine. It's important to know why she is the shit. Alright, so we have Celes. Pretty decent array of soul breaks, but honestly, it's her burst that defines the character. She's doing holy and ice damage with it. Okay, it's weird, but cool. Alright. Grants attack defense 35% to the user. Sure, would like that to be a party buff. But the neat thing is, it's another one of those Ingus style burst soul breaks where this is actually just a bonus. You get it for free. And that's a really interesting thing to get for free, because that 35% buff means that she fits on a lot more teams. She can be used as a hybrid. Because she's basically getting a free 35% attack buff. Grants haste and Grand Cross. This is the primary effect, like say, you know, Sentinel or Imperal Earth or something. This is the primary effect of her burst. So we get already she had a Super Soul Break that gave Grand Cross, and Grand Cross is a status. I'm gonna show you exactly what it is. Celes A. Grand Cross is what defines Celes as a knight. She taunts single target black and white attacks and absorbs black and white attacks to restore 1 consumed ability use. So it's like a Tauntaliate, but for magic. And instead of you know, dealing damage back to the enemy, it restores a consumed ability use. So this is the mage tank. And now we go into our burst commands. As we like to see, we love the fact that they improved upon this old, really good Super Soul Break and just threw a bunch of added effects on the Grand Cross as it is. And if it just ended there and she just had decent commands, it would still be a high A to low S tier burst. However, they don't just stop there. Her commands are high damage, 4 single attacks that grant Spellblade plus 15% boost to the user. It's very similar to Dorgon's, except for Spellblade instead, which is awesome because Celes is the Spellblade to end all Spellblades. And part of what defines her burst and her as a character is exploiting all of these weaknesses and using all of these Spellblades. And it's what gives her... It's what makes her so exceptional compared to characters that have high elemental coverage, because she covers each element extremely well. Exceptionally well. And we'll take a look at her second command, which is group attacks. Awesome. Again, great. Because most Spellblade, except for like wind, they're limited. So Celes is Knight 5, so that would give her access to Aegis Strike, so she could do Holy and Wind, but now she gets to do Ice as well. And both these commands, obviously, I'll just show you, they are Spellblade. And grants Dark Bargain to the user for 20 seconds, so it further builds on the fact that she can self-buff herself so well that she can seamlessly fit onto a mage team if you need her to. And that is yet another awesome thing about Celes, because she is an elemental dealer, a damage dealer. So you say you have a strong ice physical team, no, an ice magical team, that's so much easier to make, and you have a strong fire physical team. Celes works and fits on both of those teams. And you don't have to worry about, you know, getting all these physical users or all these magical users together, because she self-buffs herself so well. And this doesn't it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. Remember, we also had an S tier on her legend materia, and there's such a good reason why. We have Celes with exploiting elemental weakness grants 50% more soul break points, additive with the default 50% bonus. This is awesome because she can exploit so many elemental weaknesses that this comes into play almost all the time. And the additive increase, what this means to just give you an example. Let's say we're using Blazing Twin Strike, the 5-star Spellblade ability to exploit fire damage. It gives you... Oh, too much. Blazing Twin Strike gives you 65 soul break points. So the additive... what usually happens when you exploit a weakness is you get a 50% boost to the normal soul break points. So that would be, what, 33 more? Which gives you about 100 per cast. The additive bonus increases the bonus to 100% instead of 50. So you just essentially double the amount you get. So this would move up to from 65 normal, 100 exploiting weakness, and Celes gets 130. To compare that with other high soul break generation things, Life Siphon grants 150 Life Siphon points, or sorry, soul break points, while Wrath grants 180. So you're essentially exploiting weakness, which does a hell of a lot more damage than Life Siphon does, into Life Siphon tier levels of soul break points. And she can do this against so many bosses. That's, it's just awesome. Like, throwing out Spellblades and knowing that you're basically life siphoning while you do it. It's just gross. Just gross. And, when I originally saw this, I was like, wow, she can hit so many elements, but she's kind of limited to soul break, or Spellblades. And she can't... since night abilities aren't considered Spellblade, she can't benefit from that first command that she gets, which increases Spellblade ability by Spellblade damage by 15%. That's not even true because I forgot that her commands are holy, so she does have a holy Spellblade available to her in her burst commands. So just awesome, just awesome. And that's only one legend materia. Let's just add fuel to the fire and give her a 25% chance to dual cast Spellblade, because why not? Why not? This is great. Spellblade abilities deal 15% more damage, but it just doesn't hold a candle to these two. And you can only use 2 legend materials, so you'd prefer to use these 2. This is a fallback plan. A depressing fallback plan if you're unable to obtain her legend materia relic from the Final Fantasy VI banner. Celes is undeniably S tier. And I haven't even got to her other soul breaks yet. She has an OSB. Yeah. And she has a great complementary BSB. So generating all these soul break points is going to mean that you're going to have a lot of stuff to spare. And since you're not going to be casting this, because anytime you would cast that, you would rather be casting this instead, because it's just the same thing but better. The extra soul break points when you're not using her OSB to clear her out a fight. Because there's no reason to use this with her, really, unless you're exploiting Holy and Wind. You'd rather just recast that. You can just cast her BSB. It's a pretty decent BSB, and it gives her Attach Holy, which, if you really want to further pump the living crap out of her burst commands, and yet another attack buff, but this one to all allies, attack and magic, further solidifying her as a super hybrid. So, okay, I mean, I gushed enough. I feel like I gushed enough. I've never had an easier S tier, except for maybe Sid Reigns. did Edgar. Now we got a Leo. This one's gonna be easy. BSB 2, no legend materia, complimentary B. What do you got else? You got Samurai 4? Sure. Leo. The old... I got a BSB and a Super Soul Break combo, and then they forgot about me. Attack and resistance, all allies. Okay. Hey, that's not bad. That's probably why I rated it B. What do we got for commands, Leo? Holy Nerd, 2 single attacks, grants quick night abilities too. I mean, that's interesting, I guess. Yeah, it is. I don't know. It's kind of like having ninja commands. Because it allows him to attack with this Holy Earth, by the way, not non-elemental. Grants quick night abilities too. So you'd use this, and then you get a quick attack off with the Sentinel, and then that would allow you to use the second charge on getting another quick attack off with the first command. I guess if you wanted to refresh your quick night abilities, and then you could start mingling night abilities into the mix. I rated it B because it's got a nice buff on cast, and it does give him Sentinel, and he does do group attacks, which are either Holy or Earth, so he would fit onto either a Holy or a Night or an Earth Night team. So it's actually not that bad. Shock. It has that same thing that Ferris's USB does, which I like, because it augments the damage. It'll do AoE damage, but if you're only hitting like one or two characters, then it'll shrink the area of effect and focus more damage onto them by increasing the multiplier for every less enemy that you're facing. So I mean, as far as damage is concerned, that's nice. Unfortunately, it's just an Imperial Holy Burst. Yeah, I mean it's fine as a Super Soul Break, but he doesn't have enough else going for him to make it, make him cool. So he, since he does have a good burst, we're gonna throw him in C, and it's a decent complementary Super Soul Break. However, no legend materia and nothing else to his name means that he'll be C tier. Angeal did him Seifer. I remember Shooting Star wanted to see some Seifer, and I like him too. I think it's kind of an interesting character. It definitely has a unique as hell burst. So let's take a look. Unique as hell, but I didn't rate it that high. I didn't skip Edgar. I had already done Edgar. I did him at the beginning to display what I thought of. You know what? How do I put Gilgamesh in B tier and Edgar in C? I think I'm gonna drop Gilgamesh, because I think Edgar is at least a little better than Gilgamesh. Alright, so we got Seifer. Yeah, I didn't want to overplay that hand. That's something I forgot to mention at the start of this tier list, is that more so than, much more so than white mages, and definitely more so than supports, dealing damage is actually a legitimate function of these characters, of knights, unlike those other tiers, where you're just looking for other things and damage on them is a bonus. Edgar being able to dish out a fair amount of damage makes him worth, he's C tier. But Gilgamesh can't deal the damage that Edgar can. He's just slightly better at night things. I don't know. The only thing Gilgamesh has going for him as far as night's concerned is Sentinel. Okay, so we'll look at his BSB first. We got Dark Non-Elemental. Grants haste Sentinel burst mode to the user, typical. Commands. Where are your commands at? There you are. Sorceress's Knight, Desperate Madness. And here's his uniqueness in play. We have 4 single attacks. Dark, blah, 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 blah. Desperate Madness grants Radiant Shields stacking to the user. So every time that you cast this first command, it increases the level of Radiant Shield 1 step, starting out at 100. What Radiant Shield is the damage mirror status that Alphino has on his Super Soul Break, and we've got a couple other sources. It's just the most well-known. So all the damage that you take is also shared with the source of the damage, and the percentage is how much damage they take. So if you take 1,000 damage, they also take 1,000 damage. One step up, if you take 1,000 damage, they take 1,250 damage, and etc., 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 for every cast that you make. Because this is only a single hit cure, drain command, you're rarely going to use this. I think the main reason to use Seifer's Burst is for the Radiant Shield. Hey, Strider. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't pull it either. I would have liked it because it's fun. Not that good or effective, but still fun. Yeah, cool. Desperate Madness is something I should take a look at too, though, because it definitely plays into his role as a knight. He is a Darkness Knight. I think Seifer embodies Darkness Knight. Inflicting damage and debuffs upon yourself to return a higher multiplier of that on the opposing enemy. Desperate Madness. 30-second buff, which is kind of bad. It's defense minus 50% and resistance minus 25%. Not as bad as it sounds. It is pretty bad. But remember, he gets Sentinel on cast of the Burst Soul Break, so that's plus 200% defense. So it kind of balances it out. Just be wary of that minus 25% resistance debuff. You wouldn't have to draw fire because he's already drawing fire with Sentinel, which is on cast of the Burst Soul Break. And yeah, pretty much. This is exactly what defines him as a character, is draw all attacks to myself, make my defenses garbage, and then, take all the damage that I can while being a soul, he is a damage absorption sponge. When do the raids go down? Oh, tomorrow night. Sorry, I read it completely off. Yeah, tomorrow night's the carry night. Exactly, Shooting Star. Take more damage, deal more damage. It's a little impractical when you have tanks that tank so well. But he can deal a fair amount of damage if you get it up there. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, only 90% sure, that if you're able to recast his Burst Soul Break and then reuse the first command on his Burst Soul Break, it will refresh the Radiant Shield stacking, and you can keep going. You're not limited to the first, 5, if you're able to cast those on the first. That's why there's so many stacks available here. So on the second cast of his Burst Soul Break, you could eventually get it up to a nutso 300%. Oh, nothing. Oh, shoot. I forgot about that. That must be why we have such a low viewer count today. Alright, well, that's my fault, and I'll suffer for it. Whatever. So what else has he got going for him? He's got an interesting burst, and he probably could be added on, because since he is sentineling, it's going to generate some extra burst soul break Soul Break points for him, and see where it goes. Death by Committee, Dark Lightning Wind. He adds Raijin and Fujin to the party, and they all deal damage and gives them defense minus 30%. That's a recurring theme. And attack magic 30% to all eyes. This is Sid mission material. I suppose it's... You could add it to him. In a normal situation. I don't know, I guess it makes his burst... his first command arguably better. Because, he can't die, or else he stops dealing damage, and that's a problem. So let's take a look at his USB, which he gets in the... Not the coming Final Fantasy VIII event, but the one after. So it's an interesting look at because it does appear on a banner that Squall BSB2 appears on, which is one of the better, highest damage, is the highest damage physical BSB in the game. Let's see if the USB is actually any good, though. We have multiplier increases as HP increases. The multiplier could potentially be 10.5. Yeah, 7 single attacks where the... yeah, at 1% health, it could be 1.5. Which would be a 10.5. Right? Am I reading that correctly? Yeah. No. Yes. 7 plus 3.5. Yes. 10.5. Why'd that take me so long? A multiplier increases as HP decreases. Whatever. Grants attached dark to the user. Sure. Restores HP to the user for 70% of their maximum HP. I don't like it. Because that's a hard thing to gauge. You don't want to keep somebody at low hit health for a while. And the problem here is that health totals in fights change so drastically and so quickly that you would have to go out of your way for a certain amount of time to not heal Seifer, to make sure that this got off while he's at low health. It would need to be a higher cast time for me to like this USB. As it stands, though, I don't. I do not. And when his Burst Soul Break is practically designed to deal damage by way of its Radiant Shield, the Attached Dark doesn't... It helps. It helps the damage because the first command is 4 hit. So I don't want to undersell that too much. But, yeah. I don't like his USB at all. So where do we put you? I think his BSB is really cool. Oh, he has Legend Materia. Well, I was going to put him in C. Let's see if his Legend Materia can improve matters. Grants Last Stand and re-raise... Okay, now this is better. Last Stand and re-raise granted at the beginning of the battle. I don't believe either of these statuses expire. Increases dark damage dealt. Cool. Okay. Yeah, attach Radiant Shield, which was pretty cool. Last Stand and re-raise definitely works with him and what he does. So, provided that we got this, I think we're going to toss him in B. Can we put him in B? I think so. I think so. Because at the very least, his OS or his USB is going to be putting out close to OSB damage. So even though it's the effects are kind of weird, it isn't bad. It's just a little confused, that's all. Well, I disagree. It doesn't sound really awesome, and it's not really pointless. It sounds neat. And it does serve a point because his USB is based upon being at low health and not dying while you're down there, and having a last stand on you makes a big difference. So I think it definitely improves the capabilities of his USB. Yeah, I think B. Right. Just pretty useful.
Will also perform a new score from Final Fantasy IX, Roses of May, and a wonderful score from Final Fantasy VIII that I've been wanting to bring to the Distant Worlds console.
Next. Steiner did Steiner Beatrix. Beatrix is an oldie. She's one of the oldies, but they throw some legend materia at her that really dressed up the character, what it used to be. Her BSB is practically timeless. It's really cool, and deserves that A grade. Get legend materia and complimentary A. So let's go take a look. Yes, it does, Pillow. It's these are considered. Do you know the Dragoon's Determination record materia? It increases your attack by 20% while giving you sap at the beginning of the fight. I think that's it. I haven't used it in a while. But anyway, legend materia work in the same way that record materia do, in that they're considered actual stat increases that occur before the fight starts. They're not an ongoing buff during the fight. And that's why they stack with everything, because they are not actually a buff. Beatrix. Wow. Well, we got a decent array of stuff going on here. Ooh, she can cause stab with Seiken Stock Break. Rose of May is a old soul break, but it used to be so good. Seiken Shock is still surprisingly relevant because Magic Blink is timeless. Might Protector, and this is what we're going to look at strongly, is does area effect damage, causes Imperial Holy, and grants haste and burst mode to the user. This is an awesome source of Imperial Holy. One of the two best sources, in my opinion, in the game. Let's take a look at the commands. Where are you at? I passed you. Okay. 2 single attacks grants Sentinel to the user. 2 single attacks grants resistance plus 40% to the user. Both pretty neat. We like it for the Sentinel and the resistance. Both of these things are unattainable through abilities. I suppose you could get a duplicate, a side grade of Sentinel by equipping her with Draw Fire and Magic Lure, but yeah, no. So she can increase her resistance and increase her defense with Sentinel. So she's a great user of Guardbringer, with an Imperil source, a very strong Imperil source, and Sentinel will allow her to stack up that Imperil source very well by herself. If you're using Lionheart or Ace Striker, she will most likely be able to get 3 stacks by herself over the course of a fairly decent length fight. So this is an excellent burst. Love it. OSB, we have Seiken Klim Hazard. Breaks damage cap, increases with Knight abilities used. Pretty good. We believe her commands are Knight. They are. And you're probably going to be using Knight abilities with her, because one of the best things you can do would be to give yourself Sentinel, give yourself the resistance buff, and then use Guardbringer, which is just an awesome Knight ability. So she really benefits a lot from this conditional effect. Gets Sword of Clear Mind. She has a USB. No, that's just not a USB. It's just a Super Soul Break. Gives her Attach Holy. Which is, it's okay. I don't know. Attach only is fine and all, but I would probably rather be stacking that in Pearl Holy to 60%. So Sword of the Clear Mind is not something to cast alongside it, really. It's more to a full throttle torment thing. So we got 3 good soul breaks here, but we're mostly looking at I'm going to keep spamming my BSB until the end of the fight when I'm going to use Clem Hazard. Alright, so good. And what really helps out Beatrix, and this is what the window dressing I was talking about, that really helps her get there, is increases holy damage dealt by 10%, okay? 35% chance to dual cast night abilities. This is cool. This gives you a chance to... her commands are only dual hit, which is fine. But really what benefits from this is getting those Imperil stacks up, and then hammering that Guardbringer. And a chance to dual cast Guardbringer could potentially move you into the realm of doing 80,000 damage in a single turn. And 30% chance to cover physical attacks of target allies, reducing damage taken by 20%. Not quite Cecil tier, but the 30% cover is really nice. Beatrix, at minimum, is high A. I think she's worthy of S. Because as a knight, she tanks, she covers, she can deal a whole bunch of damage with dual cast knight, and she is one of the 2 best, next to Agrias, best forms of Imperil Holy in the game. She does so many things at the highest tier that how could I not put her in the highest tier? The thing, you're right, I think Agrias is going to be better than Beatrix, but I think they're both worthy of it. Thank you for the follow, that Twitch name. Alright, moving on. We have Auron, who isn't even a real knight. However, his USB has Sentinel on it, and he does have a Super Soul Break with Sentinel on it. No, just Soul Break. So because he can Sentinel, he gets to join the Knight table. However, you know, we'll see how effective he can be as a knight. BSB C, and that is using his BSB 2 because his BSB 1 is hot trash, and LMC and complementary A. Let's go take a look. We got Banishing Blade, Super Soul Break, attack and defense minus 50%. This is one of the reasons why we have complementary as A on him. It's very good. Oops. Thank you for the follow, Strider. We have his first BSB, I'm not going to go into, but grants Bushido, which I believe is plus 30% attack and plus 30% something else. I don't even know why I'm wasting time on this. This is BSB 1. Oh, well, it's a pretty damn good status. Crit chance 50%, attack 30%, resistance 25%. That's a weirdo status. You know, if Gilgamesh's USB had Bushido on it instead of this Dance of Carnage, it would actually be legitimately good. However, it does not. So that's a cool status. It's still not a good burst, though. The commands are a single strike drain command, which is interesting for a non-dark knight. He's a non-elemental knight. Well, they actually give him a fire element, which just doesn't work with anything. And the second command gives him retaliate, which, don't care. So let's move on to his Versatile Break 2, which is what we're going to rate him according to, which is a typical attach fire entry. Group, haste, attach fire, burst. And we got 4 single attacks. I believe they're both fire and non-elemental. Basic, 2 single attacks. Remember what I was saying before about someone getting 3 single attacks and Dark Bargain? And that being a good replacement for not doing area of effect damage? Well, Auron doesn't get that. He gets 2 single attacks and grants Dark Bargain to the user for 20 seconds. So he can self-buff him. This is just a C-tier burst. Maybe even less because it has no area of effect command. I'd probably prefer... Nah. As a samurai, he can deal AoE. And as a knight, he can deal AoE, but it's all different elements than his fire, so it's all confused. It's all sorts of confused. Right now, I'd be throwing Auron in D tier, because he can't even use Knight 5, so he's already a bad knight, but he does have a USB that pushes him over the edge into C, and maybe even B? Yeah, well, we'll see how chat thinks of it. It's the fact his USB is just awesome. And attack defense resistance minus 50% for 25 seconds is a really awesome debuff. And that he could also stack that with his Super Soul Break. The new Samurai skills, that's true. I'll go take a look at those in a second, because he is the Samurai, I guess. They decided not to make Gilgamesh that. And grants Sentinel, and that's and grants Magic Blink 1 to all allies. I can't... Wow. It does attacks, a awesome debuff, gives him Sentinel, which enables his ability to be a knight, and grants Magic Blink 1 to all allies. This USB is absurd. And I think this pushes him... Just getting this would push him straight from D into B tier. And it does actually synergize well with his Burst Soul Break, because this is a fire non-elemental damage USB, and you could effectively use both of these together, the Burst and his USB. So, alright, I'm actually... I don't mind being part of this party. And he does get Legend Materia. Percent chance to dual cast Samurai abilities. This is good. This is much better. Is the commands on his Burst Samurai? Yes, they are. Okay. I'm actually a big fan of Auron now. He used to be pretty bad back in the day, but they gave him a USB that can do things. So yeah, he's an easy B. Oh yeah, I'll take a look at the Samurai abilities. We have Wildfire Blade and Blaze Moon Stance. Both fire Samurai abilities. 4 single attacks plus 50% crit chance if the user has Retaliate or High Retaliate. Yeah, not quite like Vincent. Nothing, I don't know if anything's going to hit like Vincent did. So that is a really good 5-star ability. I really like it, especially for Auron, who can easily put Retaliate on himself. I reviewed Vincent as a Black Mage, but he'll also find his way onto the physical list. And I rated him very well. Yeah, Vincent was an A tier Black Mage. Blaze Moon Stance. We have 2 single attacks. Oh, man, I'm a little depressed that he doesn't have a good area of effect option. And grants Retaliate to the user. Oh, alright. Sure. I don't know. I think I was a little too excited about that. Forget that reaction. You're gonna want to at least throw Life Siphon on him. Because you want to get that Sentinel rocking. So how do you use him? How do you use these abilities? Do you just... Terra... I forget. I have to redo the Black Mage list a little bit anyway. But Terra is probably... Yeah, they're fire-based, right? They work with his burst. Well, I'll leave the theory crafting on how to build a BSB2 USB Auron later. However, he is an easy B. Sleeper hit. He should have been D for by all thoughts and how we know the character as he is now. But his 2 soul breaks that come really they redeem him thoroughly. Pain is next. D tier burst, no legend materia, D tier complementary. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here we go. Here's one of those characters I was talking about when I was talking about Celes. Celes can do a whole bunch of elemental damage, and she can do a whole bunch of elemental damage extremely well. Pain, on the other hand... 6 group attacks. Damage increases with Spellblade abilities used. The formula never goes higher than 1.1. 6 group attacks. So barely any more group damage. Yeah, okay. I'm glad that gimmick's there. It's really doing us a whole bunch of favors. Removes positive effects. Alright, we like that gimmick. Group Dispel it can be useful in niche situations, but when it is powerful, it's extremely powerful. Let's take a look at Pain. And her commands 4 single attacks of 1 element and the primary water, and 4 single attacks of... Yeah, wow, that's terrible. At least there, Spellblade. What else do you have, Pain? Grants attach water to the user and grants haste to all allies. Yeah. Pain is a D tier knight. She doesn't do anything good. There are no E-tier knights. The only knight stuff she does is the abilities, but knights can be knights with their abilities. E-tier, consider D being the bottom. E is, I can't even do knight well. She has knight 5, so she is D-tier. Consider D the bottom, and E is, I don't even belong on this list. Curilla, White Magic 4. I believe that's opened by diving her, because she starts with White Magic 3. Support 4, like that. BSB, did I really rate her BSB as B? I remember liking it a lot more than that. Legend Materia S, interesting. And Complementary B. F. Yeah. Let's see. Curilla, Soul Breaks. Burst Soul Break Intervention. I remember liking this a lot more. Why did I only rate it as B? Grants intervention to all allies. That is a status that increases attack by 30% and defense by 50% to all allies. So that's a nice thing to hand over to the whole team. Typical burst is that it's only positive effect. Okay, yeah, I guess it is B. Never mind. I was right. 4 single attacks. Grants high regen to the user for 25 seconds. Whatever. You're going to be using this command as your damage dealer. At no point, it's just cool to have high regen, but not really all that effective. Blade of Uriel, second command. 2 group attacks. Hey, at least you got group option. Grant Sentinel to the user. So you get Sentinel and you grant intervention to the party. That's B tier. What else you got going for you? You got a USB. Let's look at your Super Soul Break first. Swift Blade, 6 single attacks. Restores HP to all allies for 40% of their maximum HP and removes negative effects to all allies. That's an awesome Super Soul Break. I really like that. That's very complimentary. That 40% Medica can be a lifesaver during low power phases for your healer. I really like that. And her USB is attack, defense, magic, 25%, and grants Radiant Shield. That's a pretty good source of Radiant Shield. Not much of a knight. She can do knight things. I guess I'm throwing her in B because it's similar to Theodore. And that she's a healer knight. A healer support knight. No, Theodore's... Well, I mean, that's why Theodore's an A, because that the good part of his healer support capabilities is attached to his burst and not on a Super Soul Break. But she does have that USB. And I think that's what pushes her into B. Let's take the Legend Materia. Let's see if we can solidify that opinion. 35% to grant magic blink 1 to the user after taking damage from an enemy. That's okay. It's just for her, though. 35% chance to cover physical at target allies, reducing damage taken by 20%. Okay. Always love that Legend Materia, even if in its most weak form, which is just a 20% reduction. So, yeah, we'll throw Curilla in B. Basch, Samurai 4, Darkness 4. BSB, B, Complementary B. Shining Ray, yeah, it's one of these. Grants attach only on entry, and I believe if you're exploiting vulnerability, you do more attacks. More attacks is good. And does 2 group attacks on a second command, which grants Retaliate. So that's actually... I don't know. I really like it. It doesn't do added... I really like it. That's borderline A BSB. What are your complementary? Apocalypse Shields. Oldie but still a goodie. Fulminating Darkness grants Sentinel. Physical blink to 1 ally, all allies. Righteous Steel increases with holy attacks used. So it's one of the good ones. Do you have Legend Materia? I think Basch gets B. B is probably going to have to be taken a look at again. But that's fine. Right now we have a pretty large B and only 2 people in A. He does have potential. He doesn't. If he has a good LM that because he's a holy damage dealer. If he gets some LM that augments his ability as a holy damage dealer, like say, I don't know, dual cast knight or something, he could be really good. Snow. Alright, 1 second before we get to snow. I need to clear my minds. Alright, Snow is a weirdo. I believe he is the only character on this entire list that can't use swords. So what kind of knight could he be? He kind of falls into the same category as Auron, where he's not really all that good right now. But they actually go into developing him, and he gets pretty damn good. Monk 5 is weird, but it does open up some possibilities that a lot of these other knights don't have, and that is being able to do 2 hits of earth damage with Meteor Crash while giving himself a plus 50% attack buff. So I listed Monk 5 because it's not only just a good like damage dealing ability set, but it is suited for knights. Let's go take a look at Snow. And I rated his BSB as A, looking at his BSB 2, not as 1. The hero is coming. Grants haste, attack magic 30% for 25 seconds. Grants burst mode to all user. Or, burst mode to user, while the attack magic and haste is all entire party. If that sounds familiar, as good as is, it is the same opener that Onion Knight has. Yeah. The hero is coming. Why everything about Snow pisses me off. Why did they have to make him good? I loved it when he was bad. So he's got the same thing as Basch has going for him. 5 attacks when exploiting elemental weakness. He's an Ice Knight, which is definitely super strange. 2 group attacks, Ice non-elemental, and defense plus 50% to the user for 20 seconds. The commands definitely aren't as good as Onion Knight's, but Onion Knight, the strength of his stuff is in the second command, the magic one, where Snow definitely does a lot more physical damage. But exploiting ice. You wouldn't use him elsewhere. It's a good burst. The haste attack magic 30% is just such a powerful entry that as long as his commands were passable, which they are, a 5-strike suitably elemented first command is really nice, and the second command is Area of Effect, and it gives him plus 50% defense. It's a really good burst. It's definitely A tier. Let's take a look at what else he has. Here we go. His old burst. Grants last stand to all allies, and the commands suck, if I remember correctly. Attack increases and HP decreases. Yeah, that stinks. We've seen this before, and it is known to us. It first appeared on Locke's Super Soul Break, and it's just not good because of the way the soft cap works. That's why when I look at stuff like the Legend Materia that give attack for conditional, it's because we would rather plus damage. Like his second gives 5 attacks with avoiding elemental weakness. That's added damage potential, while this is stuck at 4, and the increased damage is a bad one, like plus attack. 3 single attacks grants Oathworn Espada to the user for 20 seconds. You know, this is actually pretty good. Oathsworn Espada is a good benefit. Would you use these bursts together? Is it complementary to his burst 2? Yeah, I guess. You cast it for the last stand and then throw Osmorta Spot on yourself. And then get your second burst going. Sure. So they weren't meant to work together, but you could potentially do that. Entrench, critical 25% to all allies. Grant Sentinel to user for 25 seconds. So not really that great in the complementary department. Let's look at his legend materia. I'm thinking, I want to say C, but it's the power of that second burst is really, really nice. So let's see if his legend materia can make up my mind. Grants high sentinel at the beginning of the battle. Yes, that does. High sentinel is awesome. Reduces damage taken by ice attacks. What? What? No. And a bad second, but let's go see what high sentinel does. So it's the same thing as Sentinel, except where Sentinel just increases defense 200%, resist increases to... Sorry, High Sentinel increases resistance 200% as well. That is, for those who are counting, is Wall. He self-walls himself at the start of the fight. Yeah, that's B-tier worthy. It's funny, it would stack with Wall, too. Because it's a unique status. So, his BSB 2 plus his Legend Materia 2. Yeah. Exceptional. Really good. Yeah, Wall plus Taunt. Like, it's hard to... Snow would be someone that would vote for him. So yeah, I mean, start off the fight with Wall and both physical and black taunt. It's just really good, really good. It's funny, we haven't seen anybody else with that. Minfilia, White Magic 4, Support 5. I got her BSB rated as C. Not because it's bad, but because it's support focused. Minfilia is a support first and a knight second. Legend Materia C. Complementary A. Grants haste, attach, holy, and burst mode to the user. The two commands are magic breakdown and power breakdown. Really, just support, and since the commands are holy based and it gives attach holy, it is I'm going to deal holy damage as a support. Blessing of Light is a good super soul break. We like it. Her USB is grants haste, attack, magic, and resistance for 25 seconds. That is an excellent support BSB. Do like it on a night. There's nothing wrong with it being on a night. But this is the extent of Minfilia's ability to tank and do damage and stuff like that. So she's okay at dealing damage, but not exceptional. She is a shite knight, and she's a good buffer, and she's a support. Let's take a look at her Legend Materia. Ooh, okay. 30% chance to cause major peril to the target after using a knight ability on an enemy. Oh, never mind. I remember we went over this yesterday. Her burst commands are support abilities, not knight abilities. So while this is a good Legend Materia, it is not a good Legend Materia on her, because that's you don't use night abilities on Minfilia. Increases the duration of stat buffs by 30%. We're gonna C tier, B tier, B tier, because what she does bring to a fight is effective and it's okay. She's just not a knight. She's very good. She is very good. She's just not a knight. We did Gladiolus. He ended up in A tier. Gladiolus is really, really good. And the only reason that he's not in S is because it's just S is populated by some really, really disgusting characters. Agrias, white 4. So, Paladin time. I did not include her Spellblade 4. I was talking about this at the beginning of the stream with Shimra. Because it's just not... It's not that much of a benefit. We don't carry characters with Spellblades to fights. Like hard, actual content. We don't carry them to fights like that anymore. To hit weakness, just for target conditions. You bring Agrias to a fight because you're... facing a neutral element boss, or you are facing a holy weak boss. Not anything else. BSB, A, Legend Materia, S, and Complementary A. Beatrix, yes. Beatrix was S tier. She is so well suited to using Guardbringer, which is probably the highest damage knight ability, and she's a competent knight. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons Beatrix is S tier. Okay, Agrias. We have her burst, Divine Ruination, which is if Beatrix's burst is A, Agrias is A +1. It's just very, very, very slightly better, and it's not even that... I don't know. You don't even care that much about it anymore if you're developing her as a character. By itself, it's better in an underestimated way. I'll just go there. So if you just have their bursts, Agrias is better because both of her commands are holy based. While Beatrix has a non-elemental command too. That's really one of the only differences, the only significant difference of the burst. And that is relevant because since they're Imperil Holy Bursts, that means that Agrias gets the benefit of exploiting weakness and generating more soul break gauge with her second command, just as she would with her first. But otherwise, they're practically identical, and I rate them A, both A. Agrias has a really good OSB, 12.75 when exploiting elemental weakness. It's a very easy thing for her to do because as a character, you're going to want Divine Ruination for her, and because this is pretty much what defines her, and that will give you your elemental weakness even on a neutral boss. Attach Holy is fine, just like Beatrix. It's just a small added benefit. Where Agrias pulls ahead of Beatrix in one area is with her total soul breaks, because Cleansing Strike is just like Ingus is one of the best debuffing super soul break, or it's not even a super soul break, but you don't care about the slightly increased amount of damage on the super. The attack and magic minus 50% is a extremely good debuff, and that's where Agrias pulls ahead of Beatrix. In Legend Materia, Beatrix is better than Agrias. until Agrias gets her LMR, she can't really contend with Beatrix there. But the 30% chance to Mire and Power Holy target after using a Knight ability on an enemy is extremely good. Probably since now I don't know this for sure, but I did some research on the way Imperil was calculated when it was buffed to being able to be stacked, and I'm almost positive that Minor Imperil Holy cannot exceed the 3-stack 60%er that Imperil was buffed to. So you could potentially cast her Burst Soul Break, and then Minor Imperil Holy to 30%, and then cast another Burst Soul Break to 50%. But if you cast 3 Burst Soul Breaks to get her to 60%, so 20, 20, and 20, you would not be able to Minor Imperil Holy to 70%. However, it's still worth something, because it is, even under the best conditions, it can be a little dicey getting Agrias to the 3rd Imperil Holy stack by herself. So the Minor Imperil Holy fills in that gap. Since you're going to likely have 2 stacks, you still have 20% more to work with. Minor Imperil Holy is a 10% Imperil instead of the 20% normal. It's a very, very good legend materia. Just not overall as good as Beatrix's. Agrias will need an LMR to compete. So where Beatrix gets better LM, legend materia, Agrias gets better soul breaks, and they cancel each other out. Agrias is S tier. %, Imperial Holy cannot overwrite 20%, no. Oh, it may be able to. If you've already stacked 3, I don't know how that works. If you already have three stacks of Imperial, I don't know how that interaction would work if you put a minor Imperial over those 3 stacks. I would like to think that it would cancel it out, but then again, maybe not, because if you've got 3 stacks going with one character, it usually means, since the duration for the stacks are handled separately, that means your last stack is probably going to fade. So you don't mind that much that last stack gets replaced by a 10%er instead of a 20%er, because it at least refreshes the duration. Next on the list we have Delita, who I believe is another one of those, I'm more of a Spellblade than I am a Knight. Let's go take a look at him. We've got his BSB ranked at his D. Legend Materia today, that's interesting. Complimentary today. So Delita's Burst Soul Break Hero King is a Bart's clone with just a little added benefit, where critical hits deal 100% more damage instead of 50. So they'll deal twice as much damage instead of 150% damage. And the commands are basic commands that deal 4 hits and do 2 of each of his elements. So Holy, Fire, and Lightning, and Ice. So he can hit a lot of elements. Can he do it good? No, he can't. Holy damage, Fire damage, Lightning damage, Ice damage. Yeah. I mean, they're cool elements to hit. He just doesn't do it all that great. Let's see what else he got. Crush Armor, Defense and Resistance minus 50%. That's actually a pretty good soul break. Counter Tackle grants critical 50% and Physical Blink 1 to the entire party. That's a pretty good soul break. North Wind Strike, significantly less so, because that's... while Power Breakdown, the ability is minus 40%, it's still close enough where this could be mimicked with dances and support abilities. Hail to the King. He gets a USB, 10 single attacks, increased multiplier of exploiting weakness, grants Bushido. Remember, we looked at the Bushido status on Auron's BSB1 and really liked it. It's plus 30% attack, plus 25% resistance, and 50% critical. Now we're talking. And instacast 2 to the user. Now we're talking. Because this works very well with his Burst Soul Break. Now we're actually turning his Burst Soul Break into something worthwhile. And this is why his complementary Soul Breaks really, really fit very well into using his Burst. I feel a lot better about Delita now. So what you'd want to do is Life Siphon out Hail to the King. And then use your Instacast 2 to throw away 2 more Life Siphons. And then, because you have Bushido, which gives you a crit percentage, and it enables this 100% more damage to push his BSB into doing some fairly good damage. So you definitely want to be using these 2 together. And I'm not going to rate Delita according to whether or not you can get both of these on the same banner. I believe you can in the Milia Duel event. They both appear on the same, the second banner. So what do you have for Legend Materia that helps us out? Oh, first I want to see, you have Spellblade commands, right? Spellblade commands. Okay, good. Delita, Spellblade abilities do X% more damage. Very good. He has 4 hit Spellblade abilities, so that's nice. X% chance to dual cast Spellblade abilities, very nice. And we don't care for this one. Attack plus 2% for each Spellblade ability used. So we love the first 2, which is great. We do not want Legend Materias, if we can help it, gated behind LMR. These 2 can be opened by moats, while this one you need his LMR to get there. So Delita is like a poor man's Celes S, but he's still good with all these complementary things that he has available to them. I think he does these 4 elements well enough to give him A. Because he really doubles down on all the Spellblade stuff. And he has a whole Holy Spellblade available to him on his first command. Which, otherwise he'd just be a Spellblade and I'd rate him accordingly. But being able to do the holy damage is enough Knight to throw him onto A. What do you guys think? Is it just B because he's not really a Knight? He's a Spellblade Knight? Yeah, that's a good point. It's Celeste. It's that Grand Cross that's on her BSB that is like, okay, I'm not just a Spellblade. Well, Delita is a really good character, and I don't want to undersell that if I drop him to B. But it's more just the fact that we're rating Knights. Delita would also appear highly on a damage dealer chart. Agrias is S, Max Rage. Low A, high B. Yeah, I mean, that's the same place I'm thinking. I'm going to throw him at B now because I'm going to reassess B. So we'll add him to the mix. I don't know, skill set. He's just a knight. Well, he has Spellblade 5, one of the few of those. Yeah, I'd have to say B2, because he is a Spellblade. Well, Celes is forgiven for being a Spellblade because she's actually also a competent knight in a way that other people can't hope to be. Okay, wow, geez, we still have 2 more. Orlando, I'm not even sure I want to put him on this list because he doesn't belong anywhere. Orlando does this one thing that he does, and it's called dealing damage. And it feels bad even putting him on a tier list because he is so vastly different from any of these other characters. Yeah, I'm not going to put him on the list. He doesn't belong here. It's like how I removed Onion Knight from the support list. He's his own tier. So we'll move on to Millie-Duel. Who, if anyone was watching yesterday, I believe I increased, or am on the edge of increasing Millie-Duel's rating as a support to A. I think she's worthy of A. And I'm a little disappointed in myself that I put her in B. But as a knight, we're going to evaluate her right now. One of the things that holds her back is they definitely give her the off character treatment, and I think like I had future potential as an old grade. I'm not listing it anymore, but it's still worth considering that this character is probably going to be forgotten. So we need to temper expectations and not rate her. I don't know. It's just word soup coming out of my mouth right now. Anyway, attack defense 50% is minus 50% is an awesome debuff. Grants haste and burst mode to the user. With a debuff like that, you can feel like she is in the knight tier because you are protecting your party, even though it's a support thing. And she does earth and holy damage, so she can hit both of the primary elements. Her first command is attack minus 40%. Second command, attack and magic minus 20%. What does your Super Soul Break do? Causes Imperil Earth. So she's really not much of a knight. She's an A tier support, but B tier max knight. I think I'm gonna put her in C, actually. She's just not a knight. Look at another a direct comparison. We have Minfilia in B. And Minfilia is in B because she has that great USB. Millie-Duel doesn't have that available to her. She's just limited by this very, very good support burst. And that's it. All right. We have completed the list. All right, here's our list. D is Agrias and Pain. So I'm gonna be right back. I need a drink and a little bite to eat, and then I'll be back to have some talk.